Welcome back to Silverstone for race 2 of the weekend in the Radical Challenge Championship. Hot and humid conditions out on circuit. Some fantastically close racing in the first race of the weekend. We can now look forward to race 2. The grid then, it lines up with Bradley Smith on pole position, and alongside is Danny Keeley once more. Row 2 of the grid is Jack Lang and Oliver Barker. Row 3 of the grid is Jack Manchester and Dominic Jackson. Richard Baxter lines up alongside the reigning champion Steve Burgess on row 4, and it's Sean Byrne and Stuart Maloney that complete the 5th row of the grid. All of the cars in order. We're just awaiting the green flag, which is waved now at the tail end of the field, which means that the red lights will come on, and then we'll get race 2 of the weekend underway with Bradley Smith and Danny Keeley both sitting there on the front row of the grid. The lights go out. Bradley Smith gets a little bit of wheel spin to start with. It's not a poor start from him. Yellow flags further back suggest somebody's stalled, and we're almost 3 wide heading up towards what is Copse Corner, and Danny Keeley, Bradley Smith and Jack Lang were all together turning in towards the corner. Looks as though Danny Keeley had almost got his nose up the inside of Bradley Smith, but who's going to lead as they head up towards Maggots? It's Bradley Smith that has got the lead of the race. It's Jack Lang in second place, and despite his very best efforts and what was a much better start than race 1 of the weekend, Danny Keeley finds himself in 3rd place. Oliver Barker's there in 4th place, and the light blue car is Jack Manchester in 5th, under pressure from Dominic Jackson in 6th place, and down to 7th for Steve Burgess. So as they thread their way onto the hanger straight for the first time, Danny Keeley looking to try and defend from the white and blue car of Oliver Barker, who jinks alongside him and briefly thought about the outside line. 3 wide further back, Steve Burgess sweeps his way around the outside of Dominic Jackson and the light blue car of Jack Manchester. Fantastically brave stuff from the reigning champion, and 2 places gained there. He'll be hugely pleased with that. Dominic Jackson still side by side with the light blue car of Jack Manchester, but very close indeed, and it does look as though Dominic Jackson has indeed been able to hang on to the place. Jack Manchester sitting right behind, and then it looks as though it's Stuart Maloney that heads up the next little pack of cars, but you can see it is just one enormous train of cars that goes in front of the wing building and up towards Abbey, with Bradley Smith yet again, race 1 winner, out front and leading the race again from the orange car of Jack Lang in 2nd place. And Danny Keeley, despite losing a place at the start, it was a substantially better start than race 1 of the weekend, and he's in the podium places and can try and see whether he might be able to pick off current championship leader Jack Lang coming into this weekend. Fights further down through the order. Richard Baxter sticking his elbows out. He's trying to work his way through and past number 64, which will have Brian Harvey on board for this second race of the weekend. Brian currently leading the team championship out on circuit at the moment. He's the first of the cars that is shared amongst drivers and is sandwiched between, by the look of things. Ahead of him is the car of Christian Jeffrey. Behind him is the light blue and pink car in the hands of Richard Baxter. He's comfortably leading the team honours as Richard Baxter tries to squeeze up the inside there. Couldn't quite work his way through. So it is still the number 64 car that hangs on to the position in the hands of Brian Harvey. Up towards completion of the first lap. Through Copse Corner goes our race leader. It is Bradley Smith that still continues to lead the race. Steve Burgess is a little bit further down through the order, but has this queue of cars sitting behind him. He's just overtaken some of them. So we've got one car that's retired off on the inside, and I think that might be Barry Liversidge possibly that retired on the inside of Copse Corner on lap number 1. Also John McLeod did not come through either, so it's a couple of cars that have clearly had issues on the first lap. The rest of the field though threading their way through Beckett's Corner and on towards Chapel Curve and the hanger straight, and you can just see there's a little bit of smoke. That's Dominic Jackson's car that's got a little bit of smoke coming from the tail end of that car. So whether that is bodywork just rubbing, it looks as though it is coming from the tyre area, so there might have been just a little bit of bodywork that's catching one of the control slicks that all of these cars run. Not hampering his progress at this stage, Dominic, but he just needs to be careful that that doesn't start to cause him a problem as the race continues to wear on. So through the Vale up towards Club Corner come what is still a squabbling pack of cars. There's Christian Jeffrey going well again once more. So a driver who's been racing out in the Caribbean at Bushy's Park in Barbados in the Radical Challenge that takes place out there, but has been going superbly well in the UK Championship as the race leaders are threading their way back in towards the braking area for Village Corner once more. And by the look of things, that is Sean Byrne pulling a move there, trying to squeeze his way through and past Stuart Maloney. So place gained, was it? No, not quite. Sean Byrne didn't quite get the job done there, had a very good go at it, but couldn't quite unlock the door to a gain of position. So he's going to sit directly behind the car as they head onto the Wellington Straight now, and might this be the opportunity for Sean Byrne to squeeze his way through and gain the place over Stuart Maloney. Now he's not close enough again as they head up towards the braking area for Brooklands. It's not going to stop him showing the nose of the car up the inside of Stuart Maloney though, but Stuart Maloney's got the move covered. He clips the apex of the corner, nice and neat and tidy through Brooklands and through Lovefield. So the Irishman, rather frustratingly, just has little choice but to sit behind at the moment as they then start to thump the accelerator, shift up through the gears, over the start-finish line to complete another lap. So through go the leading half a dozen. There's Steve Burgess, number 1, going through, Dominic Jackson, Jack Manchester, and then that squabble between what is Stuart Maloney and Sean Byrne, fighting over what is 7th and 8th places at the moment. The Irishman sitting there in 8th position. Through what is Maggots and up towards Beckett, they sweep their way. Number 15, Jack Manchester, going well in this race. Started in 5th on the grid, is currently running in 6th position by the look of things, and 2nd place is getting tasty now. Jack Lang having to defend heading up the Hanger Straight, because again he has got Danny Keeley very much full in his mirrors. We saw a great charging race from Danny Keeley following his poor started race 1, and he's hugely keen. The body language of the car will tell you he wants to press on, as does this man here who leads still. Bradley Smith out front and leading, claimed victory number 3 of the season in race 1 of the weekend, and in the early stages of race 2 is again just starting to build up that advantage between himself and the orange car of Jack Lang, who's still being kept very busy by Danny Keeley in 2nd place, and Oliver Barker in the blue car sitting there in 4th position. Through what is Farm up towards Village Corner, the heavy braking area for the right-hander they'll go. Jack Lang nice and neat and tidy. Need to be careful not to run wide coming out of Village Corner, which then compromises potentially your run through the loop, and then equally as much compromises your run all the way out of Aintree Corner and onto the Wellington Straight. So it's a very important corner, the loop and Village, because it gives you that momentum all the way out of that corner, through and all the way down to the braking area for the left hand at Brooklands. But Jack Lang still hanging on to the position at this stage. These two cars aren't dropping that far away from the race leader, who is just turning his way through Luffield now. So it's Bradley Smith with a small advantage. Jack Lang and Danny Keeley very evenly matched for 2nd and 3rd position, just 4 or 5 car lengths between the pair of them as they head round through Woodcut Corner once more. Then a little bit of a gap back before we see the blue car with its white flashes of Oliver Barker, but all 4 of those leading cars are all on the start-finish line at the same time. A little bit further back, Steve Burgess in 5th place as they sweep their way out of Copse Corner. Nice and neat and tidy from Danny Keeley. Lots of momentum coming out of Copse Corner in towards Maggots, and then the twists and turns, the sweeps through the right and then the left and the right again at Beckett's, that then turns left again and brings them up towards Chapel Curve. And this is a hugely important corner again, because you can pick yourself up into the slipstream of the car ahead. Jack Lang tries to break the toe on Danny Keeley. Danny Keeley wise, so that moves back across the circuit. It's not blocking from Jack Lang, it's just trying to break the toe of the car ahead. Danny Keeley jinks out, and he's going to try the outside line is here at Stowe Corner to maybe try and cut back on the exit. And they are going to be side by side coming out of the corner almost. No, Jack Lang just gets the move covered up as they head down in towards the braking area for the Vale. So it's still Jack Lang that hangs on to this very slender advantage he's got for himself in what is 2nd position, as Danny Keeley now tries to squeeze his way through up the inside as they head up towards Club Curve. They're side by side over the start-finish line. Jack Lang trying to squeeze Danny Keeley as much as he can towards the pit wall before he then jinks out to take us wider run in towards Abbey. And Danny Keeley has gone through by the look of things at Abbey. There's Bradley Smith, our race leader, and Danny Keeley is indeed now up into 2nd position, despite the very, very best efforts of Jack Lang to try and hang on to the position. He's had to yield from 2nd down into 3rd and is now under pressure yet again, this time from the car that sits there in 4th position, that being the blue car with its white flashes in the hands of Radical SR1 Championship graduate Oliver Barker. Onto the Wellington Straight they come yet again, and again Jack Lang is just having to move the car around to try and cover off anything by Oliver Barker. They head neatly onto the brakes and turn their way through the left-hander at Brooklands. Now that Danny Keeley has been released into 2nd place, let's see what he might be able to do to try and A, pull away from the pair behind, and B, potentially close up on race 1 winner, number 21 Bradley Smith, who is still out front and leading in the early stages of this one. So another lap about to be completed by our lead pack of cars. There goes Bradley Smith leading, healthy advantage between himself and Danny Keeley in 2nd place, pulling away from the orange car of Jack Lang in 3rd, then Oliver Barker in 4th place. It looked as though it was Steve Burgess who was there in 5th place at the moment, that being the blue car with its yellow flashes that's just at the tail end of the shot. There is Steve Burgess now, yet the reigning champion from Nottingham, and it's going to be car of Dominic Jackson that completes the top 6 at the moment. The rest of the cars feeding their way through. Good to see that Spencer Bourne's car is back out following his race 1 retirement, and there is a place gained for the number 80 car. Peter Tyler and Tom Gladys sharing that car, able to squeeze their way through and ahead of Mark Richards, so that will be place gained. As up towards the top part of the circuit through Stowe come our leading pack of cars. Oliver Barker there in 4th place, just doing a little bit as he did in race 1, taking a breather, I would suggest, for the moment, and just allowing the car ahead to begin to pull away for the split second. Big spin there, and managed to catch the moment. Car number 80, Peter Tyler and Tom Gladys sharing that car over the course of the weekend, but it's pointing back round in the right direction. No harm done, as this is another good little fight that is going on, and this is Stuart Maloney, car number 16, with the black car in the hands of the Irishman Sean Byrne right behind him. Sean, who is new to Radical Racing this year, is adapting beautifully well. Very quick is he, and at the moment he is looking to try and mount a challenge for what would be 8th position as they thread their way through the right-hander at Abbey and head then up towards what is the newer infield section that was built as part of the Grand Prix circuit, some 5 or 6 years ago now. Christian Jeffrey still going well at the wheel of car number 61. Haven't seen Christian on the podium as yet in any races so far this year, but he's improving race by race. And there is number 64. That is the car of Brian Harvey, who still is the leading car in the teams championship at this stage, albeit he is running down in something like just outside of the top 10 in 11th position, I think, currently. So the pack of cars sweep their way through. Big spin for Richard Baxter heading round through Brooklands corner. So Richard Baxter has to try and gather up the moment. Will get going again, but you're going to see he's going to lose several places as a result of that. And I think, was that even Spencer Bourne that was able to squeeze his way through? So that's going to drop Richard Baxter down outside of the top 15. He's going to be mid-teens by the end of this one. Another driver that graduated out of the Radical SR1 Cup a few seasons ago. Over the start-finish line comes our team leading car, Brian Harvey. Just behind him is number 66, which is Brian Caldwell, going well in this race. Brian had a bit of a tough race one. He was handed a penalty for transgressing circuit limits, but he's going better in race number 2 as they thread their way again round through Beckett's, and from there squeeze the accelerator up through the gears and start to work their way onto the Hanger Straight, which at the top section has Stowe Corner, which is where Oliver Barker is threading his way through now in 4th position. So Oliver Barker still pushing on in 4th place. The rest of the field that we're just heading round through Beckett's now head up to the top part of the circuit. Christian Jeffrey still going very well indeed, still with the leading team car sitting right behind him, that being Brian Harvey. And these cars are going to be fighting away for what are positions just towards the outside of the top 10 currently. So Christian Jeffrey looking to try and keep pushing on in what is 10th position for him, 11th place for Brian Harvey, as they thread their way over the start finish. A pack of 5 cars, isn't it really, heading up towards the area of Abbey, where they throw the car in. Very, very quick right-hand corner is Abbey, flat out through Farm Curve, and then you're onto the heavy braking area for Village Corner, where they all bunch up again. Brian Harvey getting ever closer to the coattails of the number 61 car. Hasn't as yet been able to work his way through, but I'm sure Brian will be equally as conscious of that. He is fighting away with cars on circuit, but it's 2 separate championships within one in reality. You've got the solo championship and the team championship for drivers that share their cars over the course of the weekend, and that is being comfortably led by the number 64 car. Further down through the order, by the look of things, that is Brian Caldwell under pressure, just about managing to hang on to the place as they turn their way through the left-hander at Brooklands. Number 66 car hangs on to the position. Elliot Goodman couldn't quite squeeze his way through there, but it was a good attempt. And then the next of the cars behind is number 80, which is Peter Tyler and Tom Gladys. I suspect it's Tom that's behind the wheel in this race. The overall race leader, though, still pushing on. Bradley Smith building an advantage between himself and everybody else. And in these conditions here at Silverstone this weekend, it is so hot that the drivers are getting a real workout, the cars are getting a real workout, particularly the tyres are getting a real workout as well, but everybody is coping with these unbelievably hot conditions superbly well, and there's still some fantastic fights going out on track, not least of which is Christian Jeffrey still trying to fend away Brian Harvey. Steve Burgess heading through shot at Stowe Corner. He is still pushing on, still sitting there in what is currently 5th position, not really making inroads into anybody else at this stage. Then we should get, Christian Jeffrey still fighting away with Brian Harvey, and the next 2 cars thereafter will be Brian Caldwell still having to stick his elbows out and try and hang on to the position. Elliot Goodman looking as though he's sitting directly behind him. The next of the cars thereafter will be Brian Caldwell's brother, John Caldwell. So 3 cars together. Brian gets a little bit sideways that time coming out of the Vale and up towards Club Corner. He's able to gather the moment. Hasn't cost him a great deal of time as they head then up towards the flat out right-hander at Abbey and then flick left at Farm Curve. Some great fights going on. We're well past the halfway point of this race, and one of the best battles is this one here, coming into towards the braking area for the loop. John Caldwell almost had his pocket picked there from the car behind, couldn't quite squeeze its way through, turn onto the brakes and then up towards what is the loop, and there's a little bit of contact there. John Caldwell just gets tagged from the car behind, is able to gather it up, and therefore there is no opportunity to squeeze its way through for Mark Maloney. So Mark Maloney still sitting behind what is John Caldwell all of the time, whilst the battles still continue on track. This is still the fight between Stuart Maloney and Sean Byrne. They have been locked together lap after lap after lap, and there is still very little to choose between them as they're about to thread their way over the start-finish line. So through Woodcut Corner, you can see the heat haze indicating just how hot it is here at Silverstone today, but Stuart Maloney doing a fantastic job of keeping Sean Byrne, the Irishman, at bay. Despite everything that Sean Byrne has thrown at it, including the kitchen sink, he has not been able to unlock the door to a change of places yet. So through Maggots, up towards Beckett's Corner they'll go, still fighting over what is 8th and 9th places at this stage. Whilst out front, Bradley Smith is still making good his escape by the look of things. This is a great little fight though. Sean Byrne will pick up a bit of the slipstream from Stuart Maloney, but it won't be sufficient enough so as to give him an opportunity as they head up towards Stowe Corner. He's just too far away. So up towards the right-hander at Stowe they'll go. The number 16 car of Stuart Maloney, the number 18 car, the black car with its subtle green flashes to it, in the hands of Sean Byrne sitting directly behind. And then, of course, onto the brakes and in towards the Vale. Sean Byrne, his best result of the season so far was 5th place at Spa last time out. But at the moment he is having to make do with being down in 9th position at the moment. He's bottled up behind Stuart Maloney, and despite his very best efforts, just cannot try and find any chink in the armour. Here's our race leader. Bradley Smith still leading. Looks like the gap between himself and Danny Keeley is just coming down a shade. Danny Keeley's still on the best part of 4 or 5 seconds adrift at this stage, but it is going the right way as far as the second place car is concerned. That's more to do with probably Bradley Smith in these hot conditions, just driving the car quick as he needs to, but not too quick. Over the start finish line goes our race leader. There is now, you can see in the distance, the red and yellow car of Danny Keeley in 2nd place. Jack Lang still sitting there in 3rd place at the wheel of number 2, and 4th place is still Oliver Barker. The second of the 2 blue cars in 5th place, just out of shot there, was going to be the car of the reigning champion Steve Burgess. So the top 4 looking as though they're fairly equidistantly spread, with Steve Burgess just that little bit further adrift in 5th position. And well, Jack Lang, big mistake by Jack Lang, heading round through Beckett's Corner all through the gravel. And is he going to get the car stopped in time before it makes contact with the barriers? Well, he did, but that car sort of seemed to turn in towards Beckett's and then go straight on for Jack Lang. And for poor old Jack Lang, I suspect that might be his race run there. There's Richard Baxter, number 88. He had a spin earlier on in the race and is now trying to work his way back up through the order, and is finding that task rather difficult at this stage. Chipping away, but he is not gaining lots of places. This car here, though, of course, has just gained a place. That is now up to 3rd position for Oliver Barker. Those problems that befell Jack Lang means that number 22, Oliver Barker, is now up into 3rd position, having his first season of racing in the Radical Challenge Championship. And Oliver Barker now comfortably in 3rd place. Steve Burgess, the second of the 2 blue cars, sitting there in 4th position. But Bradley Smith is now just about to start his last lap of the race. We saw him claim victory in dominant fashion in race number 1. Race number 2, it has all largely gone to plan for him. Danny Keeley is still closing the gap, but is just too far away surely as they enter this last lap of the race. So it does look as though it's potentially a double victory here for what is Bradley Smith in races 1 and 2 of the weekend at Silverstone. That was exactly what he did at Donington Park in the first couple of races of the season. So he is on course for another victory, making it 4 for the season so far. For Danny Keeley, he is on for his best result of the year so far. You can see the gap between the pair of them. Oliver Barker is also on the hanger straight at the same time, but nobody is close enough to anybody else on this final lap, barring any sort of problems. And what has been a very, very hot and very difficult race, I would imagine, for the drivers. Onto the brakes, in towards Vale, up towards Club Corner comes Bradley Smith, and then is about to work his way out of Club, past the wing, and onto the final half of the lap here at Silverstone. Not troubled at all, he could just afford to stroke the car home by the look of things. Further down through the order, there's still some fights going on. That's Rod Goodman fighting away with Leon Aaron Bailey's car. Another one of the cars that runs in the team championship, the number 11 car, but they are down towards the tail end of the field, almost fighting over last place, as Bradley Smith is safely negotiating the loop for the final time and is about to accelerate his way onto the Wellington Straight with just a couple of corners to go. Brooklands, Luffield and Woodcote corner to go, and that is all that stands between himself and a double victory in the first of the two races here at Silverstone, making it 4 victories for the season so far. So through the left-hander at Brooklands goes Bradley Smith. Didn't compete at Spa-Francorchamps out in Belgium last time through, but instantly back in the championship and instantly back to winning ways for the 3 times former Radical champion, including, of course, that European Championship that he took a few years ago. Bradley Smith accelerates the car towards the checkered flag, and it is going to be the top step of the podium once more for the number 21 car. Bradley Smith comes through and claims the victory in race 2 of the weekend. Danny Keeley comes through and finishes in 2nd place. He'll be absolutely delighted with that, I'm sure. 3rd place will go the way of Oliver Barker, with 4th place going the way of the reigning champion Steve Burgess, who finishes in 4th, just ahead of Dominic Jackson in 5th place and Jack Manchester in 6th. And this is the fight for what is now 7th and 8th position following the retirement of Jack Lang. Stuart Maloney fighting away with Sean Byrne. They're as good as going to be, I think, nose to tail as they come up towards the checkered flag. Can Sean Byrne squeeze his way through? No, not quite. Stuart Maloney, by the skin of his teeth, hangs on to 7th place, and it's going to be Sean Byrne that crosses the line in 8th position, with Christian Jeffrey, I think, through in 9th. Confirmation of the results then. Bradley Smith does claim a 2nd win of the weekend from Danny Keeley in 2nd place and Oliver Barker in 3rd. Steve Burgess, the reigning champion, is 4th, ahead of Dominic Jackson and Jack Manchester, with Stuart Maloney, Sean Byrne, Christian Jeffrey and Brian Harvey completing the top 10. Let's hear from the drivers.
So race 2 out of the way, and Bradley won an impressive win.
Yeah, definitely. That was much harder work. Really hot today. I saw Danny and Jack having a good scrap behind and thought, now's the time to get the head down. And just tried to break away, and it worked.
Breakaway you did. There was over 5-second lead.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was hard work though. It wasn't easy. It's just so hot. We also saved the new tyres for the last race, so hopefully we'll be a little bit stronger then. And we can just sort of get our heads down and go forward.
First weekend in the Radicals, I had a little test about 2 weeks ago at Donington, first go, and then Royal Motorsport decided to join the team, and what can I say? They've done a good job. I've done a pretty good job, and we're on the podium. So,
race 2 winner of the T-Class. Brian, fantastic race there. Good battles.
Thanks very much. Yeah, really enjoyed it. My son sort of struggled a bit with grip yesterday, so I went out there a bit nervous, but soon found the grip, even though it's a little bit warm. I think there's a lot of oil went on track yesterday, so very good.